passion and pageantry of college football lives here. This is the Paul Finebaum Show, Hour 2 podcast.
This might be college football heaven.
We are live, second hour has arrived here on Valentine's Day. We appreciate you being on board. Max Olson joining us in a few minutes. We've already had a few guests. And let's check out Swamp Dog in Georgia.
Hello, Mr. Paul. Thank you again for taking my call today.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to this historic battle we got coming up tomorrow with Alabama and Auburn, and I see these teams being really, really good for future years to come too. But it occurred to me, everybody when you hear the words Iron Bowl, you don't even have to ask who the teams are. They know that's Alabama and Auburn. So I think this basketball needs to get its own nickname, since they're both going to be so good for a while, I believe. And you got to leave the word iron in there, because that's kind of the trademark for Alabama and Auburn. So I'm thinking the Ironwood battle or the Iron Court battle. All you got to do is say that, and you'll know it's going to be Alabama and Auburn. And the lead-in song to the game has to be Sweet Home Alabama. What do you think about that?
I think
you see it all over college football.
I think you nailed it. Dog, thank you. Thanks for the suggestion. Otis Shea is up next.
Mr. Finebaum, good afternoon. I was going to say that Swamp Dog had a great call up until him trying to rename the Auburn-Alabama basketball game, and that's why I called him. My take on this is who has to perform the most in order for their team to win? Is it Broome or is it Sears? Because, just a few weeks ago, Sears was benched, and Alabama still won. So really at this point, what is it going to take, and who is going to have to step up to lead their team? And thank you for taking my call, and I'll listen.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think there's a little more pressure on the home team. I think we're talking about the two best teams in the country, so I really think in some ways you're splitting hairs trying to identify one player or another. Thanks for the call. Brandon, the Nick Saban, about to be the Nate Oates of pressure washers.
That too, and the Nick Sirianni too, Paul.
Yeah, I forgot about him.
You got some dinner plans for tonight, Paul, planned out?
It's going to be fairly quiet.
Hey, I can't blame you. Hey, I enjoyed Elmo's call at the beginning of the show, and I have to agree with him. You're going to continue to have new callers as time goes on. Hell, I'm one of them. But as time goes on, when someone brings up the Paul Finebaum show, everyone's always going to remember the original pioneers of this show, whether AJ's girlfriend, Chris, wants to accept it or not. I-Man, Legend, Phyllis, Tammy, Charles, and whether you like him or not, Paul, Jim. But, Paul, anyway, gorgeous home. I seen the home, AL.com shared it, and beautiful home.
Well, thank you.
You know what that means, though, don't you, Paul?
Yeah, and that is going to be my first question when I get back. Is,
the driveway's got to be done, Paul. I've seen the driveway.
How often do you have to pressure wash your house?
Most times 6 months to a year. Most people do it once every year, but you can do it, anywhere from 6 months to a year. At least once a year. Some people do it twice a year.
Okay, so it really doesn't matter when the last time it was pressure washed. It will need it again. Is that what you're telling me?
You got to have me there. You got to have the whole 9 yards, Paul. The Nick Saban of pressure washing doing it. And I'm insured. If you pay him, Paul, I'm spraying. That's how it works out.
Okay, well, we will we'll cut a deal the next time we talk.
Hey, that'll work. Hey, Paul, I posted something on Twitter where Trump released a statement about Ari Wasserman, or however you say his last name. When you get a chance, go check it out.
I will.
Paul, I want to take care of some pressure washing business. I want to say that I do not like John. I am very knowledgeable when it comes to picking out horrible callers, Paul, and John is one of them. His calls are scripted and sounds like an idiot. He wants to get on here and tell someone to talk educated and to get their vocabulary in order. If anyone is an embarrassment to the Paul Finebaum show or the SEC, it's you, John. the Finebaum listeners ought to be entitled to financial compensation for having to listen to your calls. Why don't you pull a Richard Nixon and resign from the Paul Finebaum show, young man?
Ooh.
Wake up and smell the coffee, John. You are nobody, just like your mediocre-ass school, Missouri. Paul, thank you for always taking my calls. Alabama whoops Auburn's ass tomorrow, AJ. Good night, Paul.
Well done. Jordan is up next in Rhode Island. I don't know how many calls we've ever had from Rhode Island.
How are we doing, Mr. Finebaum?
Where are you calling from in Rhode Island, Jordan?
Providence.
Oh, okay. I was up last summer. I went to Newport, so I had to go through Providence. It's quite a state.
It is. I love it. And who do you think we win tomorrow, Alabama or Auburn?
I am giving the Tide a slight edge.
Do you have a score prediction or no?
Help me out with that. I really haven't thought that far.
Maybe 78-80?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Alabama?
I like that. I think you got a good prediction there.
Have a good weekend, sir.
Thank you very much. You too. I don't listen. I mean, we've been here on days of the Final Four, before the Final Four, and I don't think we've ever had this much conversation about a basketball game. But maybe there hasn't really been one quite like this. Let's continue with more calls. James is up next. Hello, James.
Hey, Paul.
Good afternoon.
It's been a while. I ain't called in a while because I've been having some colon problems.
Have you?
Yeah, I got to go next week and out of colonoscopy.
A colonoscopy?
Yeah.
Have you had one before?
I had one before in Indiana, but I got to do it here in Anniston.
Okay.
Thursday. I got to drink that stuff again and Wednesday and do it Thursday. And
yeah, I've only had one, and
they're gonna put the tube down my throat this time.
Okay.
Last time they didn't put the tube down my throat.
Right. So what are the James? If I may ask, what are they looking for?
Well, they said it's a possibility I may have colon cancer.
Okay. Well, listen. Whether you do or don't, you're doing the right thing, and I know a lot of people do not want to do this, but you should.
Yeah, I'm doing it. Just my family doctor. They sent me the kit in the mail.
Oh yeah, the
test and sent it back, and it came back positive.
Okay,
and
well, then you're doing the right thing. Last time I had a physical, my doctor asked me, and I just kind of mumbled under my breath the last time I had one.
Yeah. And I want to say to everybody, happy Valentine's Day, even though I'm going to be sitting here alone by myself in the apartment. I got nowhere to go, nothing to do, so I'm just going to be sitting here watching TV.
James, I'm glad you're with us today, and let me say this to you about your colonoscopy.
Yeah.
I'm glad to know you're doing it because it may very well save you a lot of anguish later on. So we'll be thinking about you Thursday, and call us and let us know how it went.
Yeah. And I want to say that Alabama's going to win the basketball game tomorrow, 95-81.
Okay, that's a good prediction. James, you take care of yourself and be well. We'll be thinking of you. We'll take a short break here. We are coming right back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
And we are back. A couple more guests will be dropping by, including Nate Oates a little bit later on. Let's check out Robert up next.
Hi, Paul. How you doing today?
Robert, we were doing great.
First of all, I'm looking forward to the Alabama-Auburn basketball game tomorrow, 2 versus 1. I'm looking forward to seeing if Auburn can guard the ball against Alabama. Not only that, but can they guard when Mark Sears does not have the ball? Because I think that that's going to be vitally key in this game. I also think that I like to see how Alabama is going to play Jameer Broom in the paint.
Right.
I think if this game is called very tight, I think that favors Alabama. I think if they let them play, that favors Auburn. I think Bama's three-point shooting, while their percentage isn't low, they've got a lot of makes this year in that category. And I really believe what Alabama has to do is they've got to make this a game where 85 points wins it, because Alabama's 17-0 when they score at least 85 points or more. And this conference, I mean, I've been around SEC basketball for a number of years, and I've never seen it this deep and this exciting. I mean, we could have 12, 13 teams in the NCAA tournament, but we go on 11 straight NCAA tournaments, though, without a national champion. Don't count 2020 because of COVID, but anyway, it's about time an SEC team cuts down the nets in San Antonio in April. But I'm looking forward to your interview with Coach Oates later on, and looking forward not only to this game tomorrow, but all the SEC games. There's a lot of good matchups tomorrow. I mean, Vanderbilt, Tennessee, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, among others. So looking forward to your interview with Coach Oates later on.
Thank you very, very much. You be well, Robert. Thanks so much. We're continuing with more of your phone calls before the next guest. The number is 855-242-7285 in case you forgot. Alex is up next in Columbia, Missouri. Hello, Alex.
How are you doing today?
Hey, good afternoon.
How are you doing?
We're doing great.
What do you know about the Missouri Tigers, baby?
Well, I know they're in Columbia and they're called the Tigers. What do you want to know?
Oh, I just want to let you know that everybody's sleeping on Mizzou basketball. I see all these Alabama colors, and they need to know what's coming to them next Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm sure they're really worried about that with Auburn tomorrow.
Hey, you never know. You're sleeping on them.
Yeah, well, I think if you're playing the number one team in the country tomorrow, you probably are a little more concerned about that than what's going to be happening next Wednesday. But thanks for the heads up, though. Jackson is up next. Hey, Jackson.
Paul, I've got some fun facts for Valentine's Day.
Okay, let's have it.
We won't see a Super Bowl on Valentine's Day until Super Bowl 61, which will be for the 2026 season. And that will be the first Super Bowl on ABC since Super Bowl 39 between the Seahawks Steelers. Tennessee-Memphis from 2008 was the last time in college basketball that we saw number one and number two going against one another. Tennessee beat Memphis 66-62.
Hold on 1 second there. I thought that's the last time I remember an SEC team being involved, but I thought I read today that there was a game Gonzaga and somebody played the beginning of the season a couple of years ago, 1 versus 2.
Oof, that's a good one.
Well, you're right. 2008, I'll never forget that game. Bruce Pearl was the coach at Tennessee, and John Calipari was the coach at Memphis.
Yep. Bruce Pearl did magnificent at Tennessee, and he's doing magnificent work at Auburn. 8 years later, we saw number one, number two, Oklahoma and Kansas going at it. Kansas beat Oklahoma 109-6. And that was like 9 months before TikTok was founded. On January 4th of 2016, TikTok was founded in October, I believe.
Really?
Of that year.
That's fascinating.
And it's 190 days till week 0, 195 days until week 1, and 197 days till Alabama, Florida State.
Well, you are a regular statistician there.
I do my best, Paul. I do my best.
Well, you
in the meantime, if you need me, I'll be watching Be My Valentine Charter, which I can't believe it's been 50 years since it aired.
Hey, thanks for the call. There have been a couple of, I've seen conflicting stories, but 1 versus 2 in basketball is fairly rare. There have been a couple of them since the February 08 game. Michigan State and Kentucky played about 10 years ago. Kansas played Oklahoma. There was one other one, but sometimes it depends on really what poll you're leaning on there, because college basketball has conflicting polls. Thank you for the call. Appreciate it very, very much. And let's check out Carden in Birmingham. Hey, Carden.
Hey, Paul. How you doing?
We are doing well. Thank you.
I always wanted to talk about the Alabama-Auburn game this weekend. You know, I really think the key is Chad Baker-Mazara and him keeping his composure. Because, I mean, Paul, he's 25 years old, and he throws a hissy fit every game. I mean, how can that happen?
I don't know. That's a pretty perplexing and vexing question.
I think that if Alabama can get underneath his skin and get him a technical foul and get him thrown out, I think it'll sway Alabama's way.
Well, I appreciate your suggestion. Thank you very, very much. So let's continue here and check in with Donnie in Wyoming. Hello, Donnie.
Hey, Paul, how you doing today?
We are well,
hey, I'd like to, the best time, I'm in Wyoming. I've lived in West Virginia most of my life. The Mountaineers are about to be back, Paul. Rich Rodriguez in a weak Big 12 schedule. Maybe not this year, but in the next couple years to come, West Virginia's going to dominate, baby. I can't wait to see it.
You know, I'm just glad to see Rich go back there because he was so good there, and his journey back has been really challenging. You know, the Michigan experience was a disaster. He wasn't great at Arizona, and then he had to find himself again, and he became an assistant. He ended up going to where was it Jacksonville? There was another school somewhere in there too. I can't remember, but I mean, he really he has not had an easy path, and to go back to where he is beloved is great.
Yeah.
Thank you for the call. Appreciate it. Let's check in with Catherine next in Florida. Hello, Catherine.
Hey, Paul. Happy Valentine's Day. Let me tell you, I love, is her name Elizabeth, the chef?
Yeah, Elizabeth High School.
Oh, my gosh. Thank you so much for having that. Not only was she just hysterical, but, you know, gave a lot of good ideas. And, Lord, do we need some humor today, I'm telling you.
Yeah, no, I don't think we've ever had a guest that came in at a better spot than she did after that truly forgettable call from that cranky judge.
Oh, my gosh. You know, Paul, this has been one of your best weeks, but, you know, it's just sad that we have him and the guy from Missouri and you know, I mean, it just brings us down somewhat. But anyway, I mean, she was just, she's adorable.
Yeah, she really is. I've been around her a couple of different times, and Catherine, you've met people like this. I mean, they're just infectious when you're around them. I don't know how they do it because I'm not like that. I don't know many people who are, but they are just amazing to be around.
Yeah, we definitely need some positiveness. I mean, it's just been, this year, it's just been so stressful. But listen, I was just going to ask you, how is this going to work if you're actually moving to Birmingham?
Catherine, you're asking a very vexing question right now that I don't have any answers to, but I hope to soon.
Okay, well, I was just curious. I didn't know how that was going to work.
It's a great question, and I did not expect to be moving, but these things happen.
Well, anyway, well, listen, thank you so much for brightening our day, and
thank you.
Happy Valentine's to everybody
Happy Valentine's
that's
Day to you, Catherine. We'll take a short break. We have a very special guest coming up in just a moment. More of your phone calls after that. And Nate Oates a little bit later on. Max Olson from ESPN will join us next.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Okay, we are back on the show that never ends. We're about to talk about the portal. We got a caller or a guest that may want to go in the portal after that episode. Max Olson joining us, who has dug deep into the portal and trying to let us know how schools did. Max, good afternoon. Before you get to the portal, you're an objective person. How would you judge that debate we just saw?
Well, I've watched it, and I'm wondering, have you guys investigated how Brad ended up with 5 points? That's way too high.
Well,
I mean, you give him one for the Kool-Aid. That's a good
that
line.
was a
But
good
how did we
line.
get to 5?
Uh, on my card he won, so you're talking to the right person. But then again, I am clearly biased toward the callers over any accredited journalist
That's
like
fair.
you. So let's talk about what's happening in college football right now, and the portal seems to be where most of the activity is, and where college football is won or lost right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And Paul, this December portal cycle was an all-timer. I mean, you expected every year the numbers go up every year in terms of the number of transfers, but I think this was the cycle that felt the most like free agency, where teams are just straight up spending a lot of money. This is kind of their last offseason where they get to sort of throw big offers out there before there is a cap, and there are a little bit more limits as to how much you can spend on your roster. And so, I think honestly, going into the 25 season, we're going to have more players between players that transferred and players that re-signed and were retained. Like we're going to have more players making $1 million than we've ever had in college football, because the price of a good player, a starter, an all conference type of player, just went way up this offseason.
So take us through your reporting and what you've gleaned from talking to many, many people. How did it go, and really, where was the money spent?
Well, as usual, it's spent on the premium positions. It's spent on quarterback, offensive tackle, defensive tackle, edge rusher. That's where people are willing to drop a lot of money, and usually where if you've got a need there, like you kind of can't go cheap. But I think this was a cycle where there are a few programs, and I wrote about Texas Tech this week on ESPN.com. That's a program that's just decided, we think we're close. We want to be in the playoff in 25. Let's go try and build the best portal class in the country. They spent over $10 million to do so, and picked up a lot of the top guys on their board. And so I think that the programs, we traditionally we talk about recruiting. It's okay, who has all this momentum and the best pitch and all this stuff. I think this is the cycle where it's like you have to kind of talk about the money first and who is willing to spend, who is willing to invest in their roster. And I think these programs that at the highest level, the Power Four level, that are talking about devoting 14, 15 million bucks on their team for next year under this new cap. They had to pay a lot of money to keep what they had, and then if you want to go compete for premium players, these are just straight up bidding wars this offseason.
So take us through two ends of that. You mentioned going out, but what's it like trying to retain your roster, and how expensive does that get?
Yeah, I think this is the deal where in the past, obviously that deal is struck between the player and their agents and the collective, and now that responsibility is shifting more and more over to the school, and the school having some responsibility in sort of getting those deals done and getting it worked out. And so you had a situation in December where I just think across the board, players and the representatives, and I think a big piece of this is just that more players have representation than ever before. You're going to go to the table at the end of November and say, "Hey, let's get to a good number here, or else we can go in the portal." And I think there's always been that threat, but this year you just knew there was a lot more money being thrown around, being spent, because I think especially for the programs that have strong collectives, they looked at the opportunity here and knew, like, we need to front load deals and spend a lot of money in the spring before we get to July, and we kind of get post house, and we have to start living by a cap. And so the ones that were willing to spend, certainly we're going to be extremely competitive. And I think that everybody wants to keep their top talent, but those guys have agents, and those agents are going to get the best offer you can get. And when you have 70 other schools out there, there's always going to be another school out there who's willing to pay more. So I think that puts these coaching staffs in a tough spot where you don't necessarily want to lose a guy, but you're going to have to pony up to keep him.
You mentioned Texas Tech. They obviously spent a lot of money. What and who else did you notice out there throwing money around?
Well, I think, to praise the top classes out there, I think Texas Tech certainly had one of the top portal classes. The one that impresses me, and I think you'd have to make a pretty strong argument, is the best portal class in the country, was LSU. I think LSU did a terrific job this offseason of getting a lot better. And you didn't see the Tigers take a huge portal class a year ago, but obviously as you go through the 24 season, certainly some pretty frustrating moments for Brian Kelly, and they went out and executed and got some of the best guys out there. I love what they picked up at wide receiver with Berrien Brown from Kentucky, with Nick Anderson from Oklahoma. They got better at offensive line, pass rush, tight end, cornerback. Like LSU is going to be one of the more improved teams in the country, and I think the expectations certainly have to be playoff for them in 25. I think they're that good. I think same with Miami. Miami's another one of those programs that just like they came so close in 24, and to go out and get Carson Beck is a big splash, obviously. But I think they did a great job of picking up a lot of players that are going to start for them, and I'm be surprised if they're done. I bet they'll be recruiting the portal more in the spring. I just think you see a lot of those programs that whether they made the playoff and they lost a game or they just came up short, like there's a lot of motivation, and this is kind of your last chance to really go make a big splash.
And in terms of the spring class, it's always seemed less important, obviously, because of the time of the year. But what are you looking ahead at, and what do you think we should be watching?
Yeah, it seems less important just because there's fewer quarterbacks on the move, and I think that's the thing that people always look at. Certainly in last year's spring portal, didn't see a lot of starting quarterbacks make move. You didn't see teams like Michigan go out and get somebody, or Auburn go pick up a quarterback that really changed things. And so I don't think you'll see a ton of quarterback movement this offseason, especially because teams knew that they had to re-sign their guys and put big money in front of them to keep them for 25. But I think it'll go back to positional need. The teams that want to be in the playoff in 2025, they're going to look at their rosters, and it's not just about like, I mean, you're going to have needs, and like last year, for example, defensive tackle was a big position. A lot of people competing, spending a lot of money on premium players there. It's part of it is like you have to make up for the attrition you just went through. Part of it is like going through spring ball, seeing how position battles play out. But if you've got a few needs, like you're going to have to spend a lot of money in the spring, and the demand on those players, whoever does go in, I think will be pretty intense.
So what would entice a player in the spring? I think you answered it with money, but kind of frame what and how it will be different based on what we just got through watching in December.
Yeah, it's a good question. Like, if you didn't go in December, why would you go in April? I think part of that is, each school is still really working through that process of getting the money figured out, and in terms of how they're going to distribute that, work with the collective and all that for next year. And so I'm sure for some guys, it's let's kind of see, did they make good on the promises they made me in December and January? Part of it is just position battle. I think it's still going to be highly motivated just by like, what's my draft position? What's my position on the depth chart? Is there a move out there that puts me in a better spot? And I think you saw some players make moves last offseason, like Derek Harmon going from Michigan State to Oregon is like one of those players that he greatly improved his draft stock. Could be a first round, early second round guy. Like, I think those kinds of pieces are out there, and you could say, oh, it's just going to be tampering on all those guys. You don't really have to tamper anymore. You can just contact the agent, express your interest, go third party, and certainly NCAA can't do much to stop that these days.
Incredible stuff. I mean, Max, I realize you're covering this all the time, but these questions I never believed we would ever be asking with a straight face, and I'm still not sure we are dealing with that. It's incredible. Many. By the way, like who surprised you the most? Maybe that they not so much didn't act, but didn't get very much, or maybe didn't try.
It's a good question. I think Alabama's one that I don't think they did a bad job. I think Alabama picked up some quality players. Isaiah Horton at wide receiver from Miami. Cam Dewberry will come in and probably start from Texas A&M. Nikhil Green, the linebacker from Colorado, I think has a chance to make them better. But Alabama's probably one of those where they had a lot more attrition than they had addition, and I think that's part of that is just going into year two. Obviously, Kalen DeBoer wants to remake this roster the way he wants, and guys are going to move on post Saban and look for different opportunities. But I would say Alabama's probably one where maybe they lost more than they gained. I don't think they did a bad job, and be interested to see how aggressive they are in the spring.
Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of Alabama fans. Max Olson joining us. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Interesting conversation, important stuff. And as we head to the break right now, Nate Oates about under 2 hours away as we get ready for tomorrow's big game. More of your phone calls right after this.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
And we are back. Let's continue with more of your calls. And AC is up next. AC, you there? That felt good, by the way. Chris is up next in South Carolina.
Hey, Paul. I had the opportunity to see that nice house of yours, Paul. I just got one question for you. How big is the doghouse?
It's pretty big.
Hey, you're going to be sleeping in there if you keep on talking about that chef like that.
How funny.
I'll tell you what, man. She is a cutie, though. She is a cutie. I enjoyed what she had to say. But I'm going to tell you something, Paul. I posted your house last night. It was an AL article. I don't hope you don't mind me doing it. But how about Jim? He unblocked me just to make a comment and say that he was the reason that you got the house, Paul. Can you believe that?
Well, I'm glad that Jim's telling the truth again. I mean, this show would not be on the air without Jim, so therefore I wouldn't be able to afford groceries or gasoline or anything else.
Man, let me tell you something, Paul. Even if you ain't never ever started a Paul Finebaum show, Paul, you was great. You was great for Destiny. With them ears like that, Paul, you had to make money with ears like that. I mean, you could have substituted for a satellite committee or something. So let me tell you something about Brandon the pressure washer. Man, I'm trying. Man, want to wash your driveway so much, Paul. Man, you give him an opportunity to do it. And it's just going to be like Nick Saban. He's going to quit halfway through it. You have a nice day, Paul.
Okay, let's try AC one more time. AC, are you there now?
Yeah, I'm there. I don't know what happened to your station or in my end. I have no clue. But can you hear me better this time?
You sound great.
Perfect. Let me ask you a question. You got to take a side between AJ and Bash. Who is more likely to win their bet this weekend? And give me a reason. And I hope they make it $50,000. I mean, what do you have to lose, boys? I mean, are you man enough to do it? Let's do it.
These calls always leave you wanting more, don't they? Robert is up next in Kentucky.
Hey, Paul.
Hey, Robert.
Question for you. I'm a big Kentucky fan. I'm not a big Kentucky fan on their football. With the NIL going the way it is right now, couldn't Mark Stoops take a little less salary from what he's doing to help us get better?
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but I don't think there's a direct correlation between what a coach makes and the money that goes into the pot there. I'll have to get some clarification on that. But Mark Stoops makes a lot of money for a coach who has not had a good season in a while.
I would agree. And I would think that I know the last couple of years have been bad, but still overall, Kentucky hasn't been that good in football for a while.
No, I mean, he's had, if I remember correctly, 3 inconsistent years out of 4. He had that one really good year, but the program to me looks like it's spiraling out of control.
Well, I would agree with you, and I would think that we're not a bad state. Kentucky football and basketball can draw a lot of money. I'm just surprised that we're not getting the players we should get.
I am too, and this is one show that has always been supportive of Mark Stoops, but I really don't like what we're seeing. The last he had that good year in 21, I believe. I can't remember. He in 20 he was 5-6, and then he had that record in 21 that I think they went to the Citrus Bowl. What was the overall record there? Yeah, I think they had 10 wins, and so he's gone 5-6, 10-win season in 21, 7-6, 7-6, 4-8. He has essentially had 4 out of the last 5 seasons have been mediocre or worse. That is a bad trend. Thank you for the call there. Let's continue with a few more and check out Thomas in Auburn, Alabama.
Hey, Paul, I just wanted to come on and give you a little hot take. I think that Chaney Johnson is going to be the best player on the floor on Saturday. I think he proved it against Vandy. It's a very underrated piece of this Auburn team, and I think he's going to be the best player on the floor.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. Thank you very much. Let's continue. Mark up next in Indiana.
Hello, Paul.
Hey, Mark. Good afternoon.
Hey, I want to talk to you a little bit about the goaltending in college basketball. And,
Okay.
I'm a Kentucky fan, and so there's been a couple of cases where, let's say, the Kentucky player stole the ball and went racing down the court, and then a defender come behind and swatted the ball away, and they called goaltending and gave the ball to the opponent. Well, in two cases, I saw where the Kentucky player got the rebound or the block shot back, so Kentucky still had possession, but they took the possession away from Kentucky. So then they go into halftime, and then the officials come out and they review it during halftime, take points away. So they, in essence, they have taken a possession away from Kentucky at that time. And I'm just using Kentucky. I know it happens to every team, but I'd like to see them, make a gesture or something like this could be goaltending, and then next dead ball or change of possessions, blow the whistle, and they'll look at it then.
Hey, so Mark, how much
until the end of the
longer?
game.
How long after the original call did they come back and change it?
Oh, it was during halftime. It was like during halftime they took the points off the board.
I don't like that. I feel like you just ought to make a call, and if you miss it, you miss it. But
well, Paul, they don't make that call in the second half. I mean, they'll wait
I
till the
really
end of the
don't
game
like
and go,
that at
wait a
all.
minute, we may have a different winner.
But as a general rule, I don't really. To me, basketball officials, they spend way too much time preening for the cameras and not enough time making the call.
Yeah,
Just
I
make
say
the call.
make the call. Live with it, or-
If you want to look at it, take a quick look. You can do that at any time and just get it over with.
Yeah, yes, but not take points away later.
Yeah, no, I think
that
that's
was
crazy.
wrong. Yeah. Also, it seems like there's so many injured players in the SEC this year. I'm thinking about how physical the play is in basketball. And
Hey, Mark, thank you very much.